So the morning has come at last. In the end, would you believe it, I actually got a bit of sleep. I smashed open this metal lockbox, and what do you know, inside it I found some sort of machine gun thingy. And you know what the Beatles used to say? Happiness really is a warm gun. Well, it certainly made me feel safer. Only got a few rounds for it, but perhaps if I keep it for emergencies. Anyway, where was I with my story? So how can this be my fault and yet not my fault? Guess I have to go back to the beginning. I worked, after Alice died, for a number of years on the problem of stem cells and regeneration. How to encourage cells to start to divide again, to regenerate, to return to an earlier, more primitive state prior to differentiation. And in the end, I unlocked the secret. Simple protein that I was able to bulk produce. I mean, the technology for the production was well established for things like human insulin. It just needed to be adapted. And that could have made me a wealthy man, a famous man, just on its own. I wasn't greedy. I licensed it widely. I recognized its huge therapeutic potential. I'm sure you've all used it, things like Regenadol. Simple mixture of the isolated protein and a mild painkiller, and yet those tablets, they relieve pain and encourage regenerative healing. Lots of products, from healing creams to the tablets, you've probably all used. But it wasn't enough. You see, it's untargeted, and you have to be careful with the dosing. One tablet, you're good, it'll help you heal, it'll relieve the pain. 20 or 30 tablets, not so good. Inflammation in the brain, swelling, psychotic episodes, madness, and eventually death. Well, you've seen the zombies. Reduced to nothing but rabid creatures with only a desire to feed. So in this way, it was a wonder medicine, used correctly. But it had limited potential. How to target a specific group of cells, a small region of the body, in a safe way that wouldn't cause overdose. I dreamt of regrowing spinal cords, feeling traumatic injuries after surgery, regrowing limbs even. It was all on the cards, it was all possible if I could target that protein just at the cells that needed it. And I had an idea. I thought I knew how to achieve what I wanted, but I needed money and facilities. And that's where Kage came in. They seemed like a white knight at first, offering me all I needed to complete my research, whilst telling me I could retain intellectual property ownership of what was developed. They seemed very genuine. How naive I was. So what was my idea? Well, nature has the answer, really. Simple virus. Simplest. Well, I won't call them living organisms exactly. By many definitions, they're not living. They're creations that hijack living organisms to produce replica copies of themselves, like something out of science fiction, and yet very much real. The virus gets into a cell and takes over its manufacturing system to produce copies of itself. Now, clearly, you can't just go injecting infectious viruses into people. In any case, how would that target the protein, even if the virus was modified to contain the appropriate RNA to trick the cell into producing regenerative protein? How do you target specific cells, and how do you prevent overdose? Here's where I got really clever. See, I didn't choose a human virus. I chose a bacteriophage, something that could never normally infect human cells. Monstrous things, bacteriophages, arguably the greatest killers on the planet. Trillions upon trillions of bacteria killed every day. No, that's too small. Trillions upon trillions upon trillions. The only reason bacteria survive is that they breed so fast. Oh, that's not quite what I expected. Anyway, back to the story. So these bacteriophages, they look like monstrous lunar landers, but on a nanometer scale. And they infect bacteria by attaching to them with their nasty 6 legs like hideous spiders and injecting RNA into the bacteria, which the hapless bacteria then adopts as its own and ends up producing thousands or millions more virus before it finally bursts and dies. No immune system in a bacteria to counter the invader. But I modified this bacteriophage so that under very special circumstances it could inject its payload into a human cell. And yet that human cell could not reproduce the virus. Just the one protein that we wanted. But here's where I got really clever. You see, how do you control which cells the phage injects into? Well, you make the receptor susceptible to a radiation burst. Under normal circumstances, it can only inject into its target bacterial host, but expose it to a focused beam of specific wavelength of radiation, and the receptor changes shape and can inject into human cells. So in order to achieve healing of a particular region of the human body, you inject an isolate of the virus, it spreads around the body, but it can't infect the cells. Then you focus using conventional X-ray machines, beam of radiation, just in the region where you want to trigger healing. Those cells soak up the virus, produce the protein themselves, and hey presto, the nerve regrows. Damaged kidney miraculously starts to grow, or even, as I mentioned, a severed limb. That's what got the attention of the Lancet and Time, and it was safe. The sort of radiation I used was not to any significant level present in the environment. The virus, quite safe. You could inject huge quantities into a human host without any adverse effects at all. The start of a therapeutic new age, medical renaissance. But my white knight had other ideas. They stole my technology and turned it to an altogether darker purpose. It started with requests for exclusivity, non-disclosure agreements, offers of huge sums of money, but I wasn't interested. I wanted to spread the technology around the world to make sure all had access to its potential. So then came the threats, and eventually an assassination attempt. I was already nervous, starting to see the writing on the wall, and I had a bodyguard. What was his name now? Oh heavens, what sort of a man am I? He saved my life, and no, I can't remember his name. Anyway, I was contacted by a whistleblower. They said they had documents that could prove what he actually were doing, that I could use in court to stop the horror from being unleashed. I met them at an agreed location, and he handed over the documents, and then it was surreal. His head exploded in a shower of blood, and I was frozen in place. Then a moment later, there was the sound. And I just stood there, and the next bullet would have been mine if it wasn't for Noah. Noah, that was his name. Threw me to the ground and just said, run, hide, disappear. And that was the last I saw of him. I don't know if he lived. But there was a better man than me. And so I went underground. But even so, I tried to get some of what the whistleblower had given me and given his life for out into the public domain. But a Kage got out in front of me in the press. They claimed that I was a rogue scientist who had conducted illegal and unethical experiments that they had finally discovered and put a halt to. And so they turned me into America's most wanted. And so I was silenced just as effectively as if they'd killed me, with an international arrest warrant out for my capture. And they were able to carry on with their research. But even they couldn't anticipate what happened on the moon.
Well, now that you did the job, I guess you ain't all
A
that
pistol.
bad after all.
That looks like it might take those shorter, fatter bullets that I've got.
Hey, jerk, you need some work? It's a deal. Disappoint me, and you'll find yourself on the wrong end of a rope.
This he says to a man standing in his shop with a machine gun. Not the sharpest knife in the drawer.
A sale is a sale, even if it's to a scumbag like you.
Anyway, where was I now? Poor biosecurity in their labs. And an unanticipated side effect of the tidal decoupling project at Moonbase 1 and their Super Soldier project triggered an apocalypse that has killed billions. So I guess I better go and dig up these supplies of his. So on the way over here, I saw another of those darn birds. Tried to fire a couple of shots to scare it off, but it didn't work. No, that's not quite true. I took 6 shots before I could hit the beggar. It seems I'm not much better with a pistol than I am with a spear. Still. Made a loud bang and that made me feel better. Oh, I think we have another visitor. Oh, only 3 that time. I wonder what this gentleman did in his previous life. Before he decided that his sole objective was to try and eat my face. I wonder what they all did. Best not to think. It's hard enough already. A barista's guide to making the perfect espresso. What could be more useful in an apocalypse? Home again, jiggity jig. Return to that trader, the ignorant pig. Still, needs must. You know what they say, don't bite the hand that feeds you, unless you can follow up with a scalpel to the kidneys.
If you break... Didn't we agree your first job was for free? Damn, this is all I can spare.
Well, apart from your obvious inability to cancer, no, we didn't.
Hey, jerk, any word of advice? Next time, bathe before you come to a job interview.
Excellent advice, sir. If I might return the favour. Breath mints, perhaps? Breath mints. I'm afraid it's getting a little late, boys. No time to play.
Get lost, bum. If you want work, don't just stand there with your thumb up your ass. Get the job done.
Stand there with my thumb up my... Well, actually, that's rather difficult to achieve, I would think. Can't say I've ever tried it. Perhaps you have longer arms than I do, sir. Anyway, much as I'd love to stay in Chinwag, I really do think I ought to be getting along. Now I need to find somewhere small nearby that I can clear out and secure, I think. This looks a little large, given the time available. Ah, that looks more like it. Probably ought to try and save some bullets here. See what we can do. Honey, antiseptic, beer, analgesic. Yes, I think this will do nicely. Just knock out these stairs to secure it. Couple of extra blocks for security, and I think then I can hunker down for the night. That'll come in handy. And there's even a little food and a bed here.